Repeated often enough, a myth can become a fact in the popular mind. A blurred line between myth and fact can in fact shape important expectations regarding marriage. Perhaps you are dismayed, as I was, by the January 16th New York Times headline, front page, which read, 51% of women are now living without a spouse. The story went on to say, up from 35% in 1950 and 49% in 2000, quote, probably for the first time, more American women are living without a husband than with one. Dismay came on two fronts. First, that so many women were living without a spouse, and second, that the article seemed to take some glee in proclaiming that many of these women, quote, were delighting in newfound freedom, end of quote. What's interesting is the story turns out not to be true. While marriage is under pressure, it is untrue that a majority of U.S. marriageable age women are living without a spouse. In typical laconic fashion, when the New York Times retracted or modified its story, it said simply that its earlier calculations were based on women, quote, 15 years and older. It makes sense if you include 15 to 17-year-olds that the numbers would be skewed because, of course, 90% or more of the 15 to 17-year-olds live at home with their families and are not married. In fact, as you see, the 2005 census shows that 56.9% of women over age 18, a more marriageable age, are married, and 53% have a spouse present. Among women 30 to 34 years old, 67.3% are married, and among women 35 to 39, again the important marriageable ages, the U.S. Census indicates 70.5% are married. Another example of media myth becoming fact is the now infamous Newsweek story, The Marriage Crunch. You may remember this. The data used was early data from Yale and Harvard researchers, and they projected that the chances of a 30-year-old white, college-educated single woman marrying were 20%. And we all remember the still quoted tagline, the chances that a 40-year-old woman would be married were, quote, she was more likely to be killed by a terrorist than to marry. That also turns out to be untrue. On the 20th anniversary of its earlier article, Newsweek corrected itself in a new cover story, Why We Were Wrong, Rethinking Marriage After 40. The update recognized 90% of baby boomer women and men either have married or will marry, a ratio that's well in line with historical averages. It also noted, according to the 1996 census, a single woman at age 40 had a 40.8% chance of eventually marrying, much higher than the 2.7% they had initially calculated. It is true that patterns of hanging out don't help marriage. As Elder Oaks defined, hanging out consists of numbers of young men and numbers of young women in some group activity. It is very different from dating. Also, as you're aware, for some young adults, hanging out can lead to hooking up, variously defined in terms of forms of physical expression without commitment. Also, as you see, U.S. Census data shows that the percentage of men and women over 18 never married is in fact still rising, from 26.8% to 28.2% for men, and 19.4% to 21.6% for women in even only the last decade. We note that both total number of women and total number of women never married is increasing. The 21.6% over 18 never married translates into 24,318,000 individuals never married across all marriageable age groups. In terms of church implications, you've discussed in great detail that though we lag the world's trend, LDS men and women are marrying later and having fewer children. Speaking from someone who's on the BYU campus, it's very clear that the dilemmas are very real for many of our young men and young women. for young adult women who want to serve missions but not miss marriage opportunities, for young men and young women who want to pursue education but not allow education or debt to delay marriage or children, and those who want to plan but who do not need to see the whole future before making faithful decisions on family and marriage today. You'd know that many of these young women and young men listen very carefully to what you say and teach. So as the recent Ensign reprinted Elder Oak's article on timing, it's so helpful when you continue to teach those correct principles. Indeed, separating marriage myth and fact may help our young LDS adults maintain the faith and hope they need as they seek and commit to marriage today. It's today's update. Comments or questions?
Thank you.
Brother?
Good job.
Well, we're glad you improved everything.
Sometimes the glass is more than half full.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.